The station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. It was called Nexus Prime, and it was the place where species from across the galaxy came to talk, to trade, and to make deals. Today, it would be the place where humans met for the first time. Captain stood at the front of her small crew and looked through the window at the approaching station. She was a woman of 42 years, with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She had commanded ships for 15 years, but she had never felt this nervous before. This was not a battle. This was something harder. This was diplomacy. Behind her stood her chief engineer. He was 32, with a calm face that rarely showed what he was thinking. He had joined her crew 3 years ago, after his sister died in an accident on Mars. He never talked about it, but knew the grief was still there, buried deep inside him. Next to was the youngest member of the crew. He was only 24, fresh from the academy, assigned to handle communications. He smiled too much and talked too fast when he was nervous. Right now, he was doing both. "Captain, do you think they will like us?" asked. Did not turn around. "I think they will judge us. Whether they like us depends on what they see." The ship docked with a soft sound. The doors opened, and the three humans stepped onto Nexus Prime for the first time. The inside of the station was beautiful and strange. The walls curved like the inside of a shell. The light came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Aliens of many shapes and sizes walked past them, some with scales, some with fur, some with bodies that seemed to be made of light itself. None of them stopped to look at the humans. To them, humans were nothing special, just another new species, small and weak and unimportant. A guide was waiting for them. It was a small creature with 4 arms and skin the color of copper. It spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "Welcome to Nexus Prime. The delegation is waiting for you in Chamber 7. Please follow me." They walked through long hallways and past open rooms filled with aliens conducting business. Kept her face calm, but inside she was memorizing everything. The exits, the guards, the weapons she could see and the ones she suspected were hidden. Chamber 7 was a round room with a high ceiling. In the center was a long table made of something that looked like glass but was probably much stronger. On one side of the table stood had seen pictures of them, but pictures did not capture how unsettling they were in person. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with pale gray skin and large black eyes. They had no hair, and their heads were slightly too large for their thin bodies. They wore robes of deep blue, and they moved with a grace that seemed unnatural. The leader of the delegation stepped forward. His name was, and his voice was cold and smooth like ice. "You are the humans," he said. It was not a question. "We are," replied. "I am Captain. This is Engineer and Communications Officer. We come in peace and hope to build friendship between our peoples." His thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Yes, we have heard this before. Every species says the same thing when they first arrive. Peace, friendship, cooperation." He tilted his head. "But words are easy. Thoughts are harder to hide." He gestured to the standing beside him. This one was different from. His eyes were deeper somehow, like wells that had no bottom. He wore white robes instead of blue. "This is," said, "he is a reader, one of our finest telepaths. Before any negotiation can begin, all species must submit to a harmonic reading. It is standard procedure. It ensures that intentions are pure." Felt her body go stiff. "You want to read our minds?" "It is painless," said. His voice was softer than almost gentle. "I will touch your thoughts for only a moment, like a soft breeze through an open window. You will feel nothing but a slight warmth." Stepped back without realizing it. Did not move, but her hands curled into fists at her sides. "And if we refuse?" she asked. Smile disappeared. "Then there will be no negotiation. You will return to your small planet and remain there alone until your species dies out. This is not cruelty, Captain. This is simply how things are done. Every species in this station has the reading. You are not special." opened her mouth to argue, but stepped forward. "I will do it," he said. Everyone looked at him. His eyes went wide, shook her head quickly. "You do not have to." "Someone has to," said calmly, "and I would rather it be me than anyone else." He looked at, "If it is truly harmless, then there is nothing to fear, right?" Studied him for a long moment. "You are brave or perhaps foolish. It is sometimes difficult to tell the difference." He stepped closer to, "Are you ready?" Nodded, yes. Wanted to stop him. She wanted to grab his arm and pull him back and tell to go to hell. But she did not. She stood frozen, watching, as raised his long gray hand and placed it against his temple. For a moment, nothing happened. His eyes were closed. His face was calm, stood still, his breathing slow and steady. Then something changed. His eyes snapped open. They were no longer calm. They were filled with something that looked like shock, then confusion, then fear. His hand began to shake against skin. What's voice cracked? "What is this?" Did not move. He did not speak. He just stood there, looking at with the same calm expression he always wore. His mouth opened wide. A sound came out of him, but it was not a word. It was a scream, high and sharp and full of terror. His body went rigid, every muscle locked in place. His eyes rolled back in his head until only the whites were showing. Then he collapsed. He fell to the floor like a puppet whose strings had been cut. His white robe spread around him like a pool of milk. His body twitched once, twice, and then went still. For a moment no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the station's systems. Then screamed. "What have you done?" He rushed aside and pressed his hands against the fallen telepath's chest. "Guards! Guards!" Doors burst open. Soldiers poured into the room, their weapons raised, their black eyes fixed on the humans. Stepped in front of her crew, her hands raised. "We did not do anything." He touched, not the other way around. But was not listening. He looked up at them with hatred burning in his eyes. "You have attacked one of our finest telepaths," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "You will pay for this with your lives." The soldiers moved closer, grabbed his arm, still had not moved. He was staring down its body with an expression that had never seen before. It was not guilt, it was not fear. It was confusion. Because had not done anything. He had not fought back. He had not resisted. He had simply stood there and let look inside his mind. And somehow that had been enough to break him. The medical bay of Nexus Prime was cold and white. Machines beeped in steady rhythms. Lights blinked on screens that showed information in languages could not read, but he did not need to read them to understand what they meant. Was dying. Not dying in the normal way. His body was fine. His heart was beating. His lungs were breathing. But his mind was gone, lost somewhere deep inside itself. The other doctors moved around his bed with fear in their black eyes. They had never seen anything like this before. Sat in a corner of the room, his hands bound behind his back with energy cuffs. Two guards stood on either side of him, their weapons pointed at his head. He did not try to move. He did not try to speak. He just watched and waited. On the other side of the room was arguing with. Her voice was loud and angry. His voice was cold and sharp. Stood behind, his face pale, his hands shaking as he held a small recording device hidden in his sleeve. "You cannot hold us without proof," said. "Your own telepath touched my engineer. Whatever happened, it happened inside his head, not ours." Lies hissed. "Your species clearly has some kind of mental weapon. You attacked when he was vulnerable. You burned his mind from the inside." "That is insane. We do not have that kind of technology. We do not even understand how telepathy works." "Then how do you explain this?" Pointed at still body. "He has read the minds of thousands of beings, warriors, scientists, criminals. He has touched the thoughts of creatures that could crush him with a single hand, and none of them ever hurt him, until your engineer." Had no answer for that. She looked at and he could see the question in her eyes. What did you do? But he had no answer either. He had done nothing. He had simply let look inside his mind. A door opened, and a new entered the room. This one was smaller than the others, with lighter gray skin and gentle movements. She went straight to his bed and began examining him with instruments that glowed soft blue. "Who is this?" demanded. "Her name is Sola," said with obvious distaste. "She is a healer, not a reader. She works with those whose minds have been damaged." Sola ignored them all. She placed her hands on his forehead and closed her eyes. For a long moment she was silent. Then her eyes opened and she turned to look at. "He is not damaged," she said. "Blink to what?" "His mind is not broken, it is overwhelmed. There is a difference." Sola stepped back from the bed. "It is like, imagine standing under a waterfall. The water does not hurt you, but the force of it pushes you down, drowns you, makes it impossible to breathe. That is what happened to. Something pushed him down and held him there." "Something in the human's mind," said. "Yes, but not a weapon, something else." Sola looked at, and her expression was not angry or afraid, it was curious. "I would like to speak with him." "Absolutely not. If we want to understand what happened, we need to understand him. Executing him will tell us nothing." Before could respond, another commotion erupted at the door. More aliens were trying to enter the medical bay. Not others. A tall creature covered in dark scales. A being that seemed to be made of floating crystals. A heavy, muscular figure with thick fur and curved horns. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded. The scaled creature pushed forward. "We are delegates from other species in the assembly. We heard what happened. We want to see the human who broke a telepath." "This is not a show." "No," the crystal being said, its voice like breaking glass. "It is much more than that. For 1,000 years they have read our minds whenever they wished. They have used our secrets against us. They have controlled negotiations because they always knew what we were thinking. And now, for the first time, one of their readers has fallen." The crystals shifted and reformed into something that might have been a smile. "We are very interested in how this happened." His face twisted with rage, but he said nothing. He knew he could not throw out delegates from other species without causing a political disaster. Leaned close to and whispered, "Captain, I think we might have more friends here than we thought." Did not respond, but her eyes moved around the room, studying the faces of the alien delegates. Was right. Some of them were looking at the humans not with fear or anger, but with hope, as if the humans had done something they had all dreamed of doing themselves. Hours passed. Remained in his corner, watched by guards, while doctors worked on and politicians argued over what to do with the humans. Refused to leave side and stayed close to her, recording everything he could without being noticed. Then, without warning, woke up. His eyes opened suddenly, and he sat up so fast that the doctors around him jumped back in surprise. For a moment, he looked confused, lost, like a man who had woken up in a strange place and did not know how he got there. Then his eyes found. The two of them stared at each other across the room. Everyone else went silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Slowly, raised one trembling hand and pointed at. "What are you?" he whispered. His voice was rough, broken, like he had been screaming for days. "What are you?" Did not know what to say. "I am human, I am just human." Shook his head. "No, no, you are not just anything." He tried to stand, but his legs would not support him. Sola caught him before he fell. He clung to her arm like a drowning man holding a piece of wood. "His mind," said to Sola to everyone in the room. "It is not like other minds. It is not like anything I have ever touched." "Describe it," Sola said gently. His black eyes were wide and wet. "It was like a storm, 1,000 storms all happening at once, thoughts crashing into each other like waves, emotions spinning in circles, fighting each other, feeding each other, pain and joy and anger and love and fear and hope, all at the same time, all in the same moment." That is impossible, said. No mind can hold so many things at once. It would tear itself apart. His did not tear apart, said. His held together, all of it, all of that chaos, and it held together. It did not break. I did. He laughed, but it was not a happy sound. I have touched the minds of killers and saints. I have felt the cold logic of machines and the burning hunger of beasts, but I have never felt anything like that. That mind is not a river. It is an ocean in a storm, and I was a small boat that tried to sail across it. The room was completely silent. Looked at the humans with new eyes, not just anger now. There was something else there, something that might have been fear. What does this mean? He asked quietly. Looked at, their eyes met, and saw something in the telepath's gaze that he did not expect. It was not hatred. It was not blame. It was wonder. It means, said slowly, that we have been wrong about many things, and it means that these humans are not what we thought they were. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I need to speak with him, alone. I need to understand what I saw. Started to object, but Sola cut him off. He is the only one who touched that mind, she said. If anyone can help us understand, it is. Let him talk to the human. What harm can it do now? Looked around the room at the watching delegates, at the recording devices, at the universe that was suddenly paying attention to three small humans from a small planet. Finally, he nodded. Fine, he said, but if he dies, the humans die with him. Stepped forward. I will be in that room too. Very well, but the young one stays here. Looked like he wanted to argue, but shook her head slightly. Stay, keep your eyes open, remember everything. Understood. He nodded and stepped back. The guards removed cuffs, and he stood for the first time in hours. His legs were stiff, his back was sore, but he walked toward without help. As they left the medical bay together, heard one of the alien delegates whisper to another. The humans broke a telepath with nothing but their thoughts. What else can they do? Did not know the answer, but as he walked beside toward whatever came next, he realized that the whole galaxy was about to find out. The meeting room was small and quiet. There were no windows, just smooth walls that glowed with soft light. A single table sat in the center with chairs around it, sat on one side, and sat on the other. The door closed behind them with a soft click. They were alone. For a long moment no one spoke, was staring at with those deep black eyes, studying him like a scientist studying a new creature. Met his gaze without looking away. He had nothing to hide. That was the strangest part. He had let into his mind completely, and somehow that had been enough to break him. Broke the silence first. What did you see? Turned to look at her. You want to know what happened inside his mind. I want to know why you screamed and collapsed. I want to know why my engineer is being blamed for something he did not do. He did do something, said slowly. He existed. That was enough. He leaned back in his chair and pressed his long fingers against his temples. You must understand, Captain. My species has been reading minds for thousands of years. We have touched the thoughts of every known species in this galaxy. We know how minds work. We know their patterns, their shapes, their limits. And human minds are different, asked. Different is not the right word. Paused, searching for the right way to explain. Most species think in lines. One thought follows another like beads on a string. Even complex minds work this way. They might have many strings, many thoughts at once, but each string is separate, clean, organized. And humans, asked. Looked at him. Humans are not strings, humans are storms. He stood up and began to walk around the small room, his hands moving as he talked. When I touched your mind, I expected to find a simple pattern. Your species is young, you have no history of telepathy. I thought your thoughts would be basic, easy to read. He laughed bitterly. I was arrogant, and I was very, very wrong. What did you find? Asked. Everything. Stopped walking. I found everything all at once. Not one thought, not 10 thoughts, but thousands. Thousands of thoughts happening at the same moment, crashing into each other, mixing together, breaking apart and reforming. He turned to. When I touched your mind, you were thinking about the negotiation. That was the top layer, the obvious thought. But beneath that, you were also worried about your captain. And beneath that, you were hungry, thinking about food. And beneath that, there was a song playing in your head, some melody from your childhood. And beneath that, there was grief. His body went still. Your sister, said softly. She died 3 years ago, but in your mind she is still alive. Not as a ghost, but as a wound that never closed. You carry her with you every moment of every day. Her face, her voice, the way she laughed. It is always there beneath everything else, coloring every thought you have. Looked at, he had never talked about his sister. She had read his file, knew the basic facts, but she had never known how deep the pain went. That is private, said quietly. Yes, it is, but it is also the point, sat back down. When I read other minds, I see their thoughts like fish in a clear pond. One fish at a time, easy to catch. But your mind is not a pond. It is an ocean in a hurricane. The fish are there, but so is everything else. Waves and wind and thunder and lightning. And all of it is happening at once, all of it is real, all of it is you. Is that why you collapsed? Asked. Yes, my mind could not handle the input. It was like trying to drink a river, too much, too fast, too strong. Rubbed his eyes. But that is not the part that frightens me. There is something worse. Not worse, stranger, looked at again. Your mind is chaos, pure, beautiful chaos. By all logic, it should destroy itself. No being should be able to function with so many thoughts and emotions fighting for attention. You should be mad. You should be paralyzed by the noise inside your own head. But I am not, Sid. No, you are not, and that is the miracle, leaned forward. You thrive in the storm. You do not just survive it, you use it. Your chaos is not a weakness. It is the source of your strength. Your ability to feel 100 things at once, to hold contradictions in your heart without breaking, to carry your dead and your living side by side and still move forward. That is something no could ever do. Was quiet for a moment, processing what she had heard. Then she asked the question that had been forming in her mind. Is this true for all humans, or just? I do not know for certain, but I believe it is true for your entire species. Your brains are wired differently. Your emotions are not separate from your logic. They are tangled together, feeding each other. You feel and think at the same time about the same things in the same moment. Shook his head slowly. We have always believed that clear thinking requires clear minds. No distractions, no interference. We train ourselves from childhood to separate our thoughts to keep them organized and pure. And humans never did that, said. No, you evolved in chaos. Your planet is chaotic. Your history is chaotic. War after war, disaster after disaster, and somehow you survived. Not by becoming calm and orderly, but by embracing the storm inside yourselves. Paused. When I was inside your mind, I saw your history. I saw your wars. The blood, the fire, the millions who died. I saw cruelty that made me sick. Look down at the table. We are not proud of that. You should not be, but here is what I also saw. His voice grew softer. I saw love. Fierce, burning love for family, for friends, for strangers you would never meet. I saw sacrifice, people throwing themselves into danger to save others. I saw art, beauty created in the middle of destruction. I saw hope that refused to die no matter how many times it was crushed. He reached across the table and for just a moment touched his hand. Your species has done terrible things, but you have also done wonderful things. And the reason you can do both is because you feel everything. You do not hide from your emotions. You let them burn through you, all of them, the dark and the light together. Spoke quietly. What does this mean for our people, for the negotiations? Pulled his hand back. That is the question, is it not? They have dominated galactic politics for centuries because we can read minds. We always know what others are thinking. We always have the advantage. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. But we cannot read humans. Your minds are too loud, too wild, too free. If we try, we risk breaking ourselves. So you cannot control us, said. No, we cannot, stood up again. And that is why is afraid. That is why some members of the assembly want to quarantine your species or destroy you before you become a threat. Because for the first time in 1,000 years, there is a species they cannot see inside, a species they cannot predict or manipulate. We are not a threat, Sid. I know that. I was inside your mind, remember. I felt your heart. You are not conquerors. You are survivors. Walked to the door and stopped with his hand on the handle. But the others do not know that, and they are afraid of what they do not understand. He turned back to look at them. I will speak on your behalf. I will tell them what I saw, but I must warn you, Captain, has many allies and they will not give up their power easily. This is just the beginning. The real fight is still to come. He opened the door. Prepare yourselves, the storm is coming. And with those words he walked out, leaving and alone in the quiet room, wondering what would happen next. The assembly hall was the largest room had ever seen. It stretched out like the inside of a giant egg, with seats rising up in circles around a central platform. Thousands of aliens filled those seats, representing hundreds of species from across the galaxy. Their voices created a constant hum, like the sound of a beehive. Stood with Captain and at the edge of the central platform. He tried to keep his hands from shaking. He tried to look calm and confident, the way always did. But inside, his heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst out of his chest. Word had spread quickly through the station. The humans who could not be read. The humans who had broken a telepath with nothing but the chaos of their minds. Some species thought this was wonderful news. Others thought it was terrifying. Everyone had an opinion, and today they would vote on what to do about it. Stood on the opposite side of the platform, surrounded by other delegates. His face was cold and hard, his black eyes fixed on the humans with barely hidden hatred. He had been speaking for almost an hour, arguing that humans were too dangerous to be allowed into the Galactic Assembly. They are unpredictable, said, his voice echoing through the hall. They cannot be read. They cannot be understood. Their minds are chaos, and chaos is the enemy of order. If we allow them to join us, we invite destruction into our midst. Many delegates nodded at his words. Fear was a powerful thing and knew how to use it. But other delegates shook their heads. Though a species of tall warriors with thick scales and powerful bodies seemed especially unhappy with speech. Their leader, a massive figure with scars across his face, kept leaning forward in his seat, waiting for his chance to speak. When finally finished, the speaker of the assembly, a being made entirely of floating light, called for the next voice. The delegation wishes to speak. The warrior stood and walked down to the platform. His heavy footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. He stopped in front of and stared at him for a long moment before turning to face the rest of the assembly. For 1,000 years, he said, his voice deep and rough, they have read our minds. They have sat across negotiating tables and known exactly what we were thinking. Every deal, every treaty, every agreement has been weighted in their favor because they could see our cards while we were blind to theirs. He turned back to, and now you tell us that these humans are dangerous because you cannot read them, that they should be quarantined or destroyed because their minds are too strong for your telepaths. He laughed, a harsh sound that had no humor in it. Perhaps what you really fear is losing your advantage. Perhaps what you really fear is being equal. The hall erupted in noise. Some delegates cheered, others shouted in anger. The speaker called for order, and slowly the room settled down. Stepped forward, may I speak? The speaker's light flickered. The human delegation is recognized. Walked to the center of the platform. She looked small standing there alone, surrounded by thousands of aliens who could crush her with a single hand. But her voice was steady and strong. We did not come here to cause trouble. We came here to join you, to learn from you, to share what we have with you. My engineer volunteered for the telepathic reading because we wanted to follow your rules. We wanted to prove that our intentions were pure. She looked at, we did not know what would happen. We did not plan it. We did not use any weapon. Touched my engineer's mind, and what he found there overwhelmed him. That is the truth. But why? Someone called out from the seats. Why are human minds different? Hesitated. She did not know how to answer that question, but before she could speak, stepped forward. I can explain, he said. Looked at him with surprise. His face was pale, but his eyes were determined. He walked to stand beside his captain, his legs shaking slightly. I am young, he said. I am the youngest member of our crew. Back home, people would say I do not have much experience. They would say I do not know enough to speak in a place like this. He looked around the hall. But I know what it means to be human, and maybe that is enough. The hall was quiet, waiting. Our planet is not peaceful, said. Our history is full of war and pain. We have killed each other over land, over resources, over ideas. We have done terrible things that we are not proud of. He paused and took a deep breath. But we have also done beautiful things. We have created art that makes people cry. We have written music that reaches into the heart and touches something deep inside. We have built cities and explored oceans and reached for the stars, even when we had no reason to believe we could succeed. His voice grew stronger. Our minds are storms because we carry everything with us. Every joy, every sorrow, every person we have loved and lost. We do not forget. We do not let go. We hold on to it all, the good and the bad together, and we keep moving forward. He looked at, you think this makes us dangerous? Maybe it does. A storm can destroy, but a storm can also clear the sky. A storm can bring rain to dry land. A storm can shake things loose that needed to be shaken. He turned to face the full assembly. Humans are not perfect. We have made mistakes and we will make more, but we are not here to conquer or control. We are here because we are curious, because we want to see what is out there, because we believe that the universe is big enough for all of us. The hall was completely silent. You ask why our minds are different, said. I think it is because we feel everything. We do not separate our thoughts from our emotions. We do not organize our minds into neat little boxes. We let it all mix together, even when it hurts, even when it is confusing, because that is what makes us who we are. He stepped back and stood beside and. You can vote to reject us, he said quietly. You can send us back to our small planet and forget about us. But if you do, you will be losing something. Not a threat, not a danger, just us. Messy, chaotic, feeling everything at once. Human. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the leader began to clap. It was a strange sound, his heavy hands coming together in a slow rhythm. Other delegates joined him. Not all of them, but enough. The applause spread through the hall like a wave. The speaker called for the vote. Held his breath, reached out and squeezed his hand. Stood still, his face unreadable as always. The votes came in. Species after species made their choice. Some voted to reject the humans. Some voted to accept them. The numbers climbed on both sides, rising higher and higher. Finally, the speaker announced the result. The vote is complete. By a margin of 53% to 47%, humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Assembly. The hall exploded with noise. Some delegates cheered, others shouted in protest. His face went pale with rage. He glared at the humans with eyes that promised revenge, but did not care about anger. He did not care about the delegates who had voted against them. All he could think about was those words. Provisional membership. They had done it, not through strength or technology or clever tricks, just by being human, just by showing the galaxy what they were. Turned to her crew with a small smile. Well done, both of you. Shrugged, I did not do anything, gave the speech. You volunteered, said. That took courage, and your mind started all of this. My mind is just my mind, said. I did not choose to make it that way. Laughed, feeling the tension finally release from his body. Maybe that is the point. We do not choose our storms, we just learn to live with them. As they left the assembly hall, surrounded by curious and suspicious eyes, none of them noticed the dark look that exchanged with a group of shadowy figures in the back row. The vote had been won, but the fight was far from over. The message came in the middle of the night. Was sleeping in her quarters aboard the Horizon when her communication device buzzed with an urgent signal. She opened her eyes and read the message on the small screen. It was from, "They are planning to kill you. Do not leave your ship, I will come." Was out of bed and dressed in 30 seconds. She woke and told them what she knew. The three of them gathered on the bridge of their ship, watching the docking port, waiting for to arrive. He came alone, moving quickly through the shadows of the station. When he stepped onto the Horizon, his face was tight with worry. "Has hired assassins," said without greeting. "They plan to destroy your ship and blame it on human instability. They will say your engines failed, that your technology was too primitive for space travel. No one will question it." His jaw tightened. "How do you know this?" "I have friends among them. Not all of us agree with his methods. They told me what they heard." Looked around the small bridge of the human ship. "You need to leave, now, before they can act." "If we run, we look guilty," said. "Everything we said in the assembly will be for nothing." "If you stay, you die," replied. "There is no victory in death." Who had been quiet until now spoke up. "There is a third option." Everyone looked at him. "What if we expose them?" he said. "What if we show the assembly what is really planning, not through words but through proof they cannot deny?" Frowned. "What kind of proof?" Looked at the telepath with steady eyes. "You could show them. You could broadcast what you saw in my mind. Let them feel it for themselves. Let them understand what humans really are." Went pale. "You do not know what you are asking. A broadcast like that would reach every telepath on the station. They would all feel what I felt. The chaos, the storm, the overwhelming weight of human thought. Some might be damaged. I might be damaged again." "I know," said quietly. "I am asking anyway." The two men stared at each other across the small bridge, watched them, her heart tight in her chest. She wanted to protect her crew. She wanted to save them all. But she also knew that sometimes protection was not enough. Sometimes you had to fight. "Why would you do this for us?" she asked. "We are strangers. We nearly killed you without even trying." Was silent for a moment. Then he laughed softly, a sound that held no humor. "Because when I was inside his mind," he said, pointing at, "I did not just see chaos, I saw something else, something I have never seen in any other species." He paused, searching for words. "I saw hope, not blind hope, not foolish hope, but real hope. The kind that knows the world is dark and chooses to believe in light anyway. The kind that has been broken 100 times and still refuses to give up." He looked at. "Your species carries that hope in every thought, every feeling, every memory. It burns in you like a fire that cannot be put out, and I think," he stopped, swallowed hard, "I think the galaxy needs that fire, even if it is dangerous, even if it is terrifying. The galaxy needs to see what you are." Stepped forward, "Then let us show them." They moved quickly. The assassins were expected to strike within hours, so there was no time to waste. Sent a coded message to the leader and the other delegates who had supported humanity. She told them what was happening and asked them to gather in the assembly hall. Then the four of them left the Horizon and made their way through the station. The corridors were quiet at this hour, but felt eyes on them from every shadow. She kept her hand near her weapon and her crew close behind her. They reached the assembly hall just as the first delegates were arriving. The leader met them at the door, his face grim. "You have proof of plot?" he asked. "Better than proof," said. "We have truth." They walked onto the central platform together. More delegates filed into the hall, confused and curious about this emergency gathering. Arrived last, flanked by his supporters. His face was calm, but could see the anger burning behind his black eyes. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded. "The vote is finished. The humans have their provisional membership. There is nothing more to discuss." "There is everything to discuss," said, stepping forward. "You planned to kill them. You hired assassins to destroy their ship and hide your crime." The hall erupted in whispers, his face twisted with rage. "Lies, you have no proof of such accusations." "I have something better than proof," turned to face the assembly. "I have truth, and I will share it with all of you." He closed his eyes and raised his hands. The other in the room felt what he was about to do and tried to stop him, but it was too late. Opened his mind and broadcast what he had experienced. For 10 seconds, every telepath in the hall felt it. The storm of human thought, the chaos and the beauty, the grief and the joy tangled together. The 1,000 voices all speaking at once, fighting and loving and hopping and fearing in a single endless moment. Some of them cried out. Some of them fell to their knees. The leader stumbled backward, his huge body shaking. Even non-telepaths could feel something, a pressure in the air, a vibration that touched their hearts. And then it was over. Collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, was beside him in an instant, helping him up. "I felt it," the crystal being whispered. "The storm, the fire, I felt what they are." "So did I," another delegate said. "They are not dangerous, they are alive, more alive than any species I have ever known." Looked around the hall with wild eyes. His support was crumbling. Delegates who had feared humans were now looking at them with wonder instead of suspicion. "This proves nothing about my alleged plot," said desperately. But the leader stepped forward. "It proves that you feared them because you cannot control them, and beings who fear what they cannot control often do terrible things." He turned to the speaker. "I demand an investigation into his activities. I demand that his allies be questioned and his communications be examined." The speaker flickered with light. "The demand is recognized, and his associates will be held for questioning pending a full investigation." Guards moved forward to take into custody. He went without resistance, but his eyes never left the humans. In those black depths, saw hatred that would never die. But she also knew that hatred could not touch them now. They had shown the galaxy what they were, and the galaxy had chosen to accept them. Later, as the Horizon prepared to depart for Earth, stood with the human crew at the viewport. "I would like to come with you," he said quietly. "I want to see the planet that created minds like yours. I want to understand how such chaos can produce such beauty." Smiled. "You are welcome aboard, but I warn you, Earth is even more chaotic than our minds. I am beginning to think that chaos is not such a bad thing." Laughed. "That is the most human thing you have ever said." The ship pulled away from Nexus Prime, leaving the station behind as it turned toward the distant star that was home. Stood at the viewport, watching the stars drift past. Came to stand beside him. "What are you thinking about?" Was quiet for a moment, then he shrugged. "Lunch." Stared at him. "We just changed the course of galactic history, and you are thinking about lunch." "I am hungry. History does not fill your stomach." Overheard them and laughed, a real laugh that echoed through the bridge. Shook his head slowly. "I spent my whole life learning to quiet my mind, to control my thoughts, to find peace in silence. And now I am traveling with beings who think about lunch in the middle of historic moments." "Does that bother you?" asked. Considered the question for a long moment. Then, for the first time since they had met him, he smiled. "No," he said, "I think it is exactly what I needed." The Horizon flew on through the darkness, carrying its strange crew toward Earth. Behind them, the galaxy was changing, shaken by the arrival of a species that could not be read, could not be controlled, could not be predicted. But ahead of them was home. And whatever storms were waiting, they would face them together.